Trump's second shooter, who you may or may not remember, was convicted, and Charlie Kirk's memorial happens. But which side is to blame, or can we even blame a side? Plus, this last week the Boise School District gets hit with another tort claim, this one a little bit larger and meatier than the last. The public school system here lashes out against school choice, and we look at an Idaho potato success story. This is the Yokel Idaho Midweek Report, where we give you an overview of the news you need to know in Idaho for the last week. Did you know Idaho has led the nation in nuclear development for decades? Well, if you didn't, we'll be talking about it later on in the episode, and how Idaho is also trying to be the top in the nation for using nuclear, not just developing it, with a new project by INEL and a new partner. To get full coverage on these important stories and much more, go to our website, and ensure you're the most informed Idahoan in the room, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future content. Now, let's jump into the report. Last September, Routh crept through the bushes at President Trump's golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida. He aimed a rifle through the greenery while the president played golf, but a Secret Service agent spotted him before Trump came into view. The agent fired at Routh, who dropped his weapon and fled without getting off a single shot. This marked, if you may remember, the second assassination attempt against Trump in just 9 weeks when it happened, following the Pennsylvania rally shooting where a bullet grazed his ear. This week, a trial found Routh guilty on all 5 charges after just 2 hours of deliberation. Now, the reason for this is that the 59-year-old man chose to represent himself in court and faces life in prison when sentenced on December 18th. After the verdict, Routh grabbed a pen and tried to stab himself in the neck, but marshals quickly stopped him. Not the most stable gentleman. His daughter screamed from the courtroom, quote, "He didn't hurt anybody," end quote. Following Charlie Kirk's assassination in Utah, many politicians called to turn down the political temperature and blamed the right for divisive rhetoric. But let's look at the facts and who's actually pulling the triggers and trying to murder people. We would argue it's not conservatives, and that's not even hard to argue. Routh is another example of a leftist violence, targeting those who stand for traditional American values. While the left preaches about unity, and particularly with Routh saying it's about unity, but yet being very supportive of some more extreme left groups, their actions tell a very different and concerning story of free speech in America. And speaking of far-left ideology that has crept into things almost like rot, the Idaho Family Policy Center's legal arm has filed a tort claim against the Boise School District, which, as we all know in this episode, can't get a break, marking the first legal action under our state's 2023 bathroom law. The claim centers on an incident at the Boise High School where a female student twice encountered, allegedly, a biological male in the girls' restroom during 2024 and 2025 school year. Looking at the incident more in depth, the family alleges their daughter suffered anxiety and emotional distress after these encounters, believing the male student was engaged in inappropriate behavior, fill in where you will, in an adjacent stall during one incident. School officials confirmed they had given the transgender student explicit permission to use the girls' restroom under a, quote, gender support plan, end quote. This case highlights the tension between federal court orders and state law enforcement. While the specific bill, which you can go look it up, it's Senate Bill 1100, requires students to use bathrooms matching their biological sex, a federal injunction temporarily blocked enforcement from October 2023 to March of 2025 this year. The district says it was legally barred from enforcing the state law during that period. Idaho Family Policy Center, however, argues the district still had a duty to protect student privacy and safety, regardless of the federal injunction. The organization, IFPC, which helped draft the original legislation, is seeking $20,000 in damages and warns this case serves as a notice to other districts statewide. The tort claim gives Boise School District 90 days to respond before a formal lawsuit can proceed. This legal battle will test how our state's bathroom privacy protections work in practice when federal and state authorities clash. Which to keep up on the ongoing saga with the Boise School District or any of our wonderful stories, make sure to subscribe and follow us so you don't miss any of our future content. And staying with the public school system, which we just heard is doing so wonderfully, their advocates have filed a lawsuit with Idaho's Supreme Court to stop House Bill 93, which, for those of you as a refresher, that is the new parental choice tax credit that would give families up to $5,000 per student for private school expenses, so homeschooling or private school. The Idaho Educational Association, Moscow Idaho School District, and other groups claim the law violates our state's constitutional requirement to maintain a, quote, general, uniform, and thorough system of public free common schools, end quote. This legal challenge comes despite Idaho's schools receiving significant state funding increases, some of the largest in the state. Education, if you didn't know, is one of our state's top 3 budget priorities, with over $3 billion in general funding spent for the first time in state history. Yet, student achievement remains stagnant. For example, with only 32% of 4th graders reading at grade level, and minimal growth showing on national assessments. Instead of working to improve these poor outcomes with existing resources, which are massive, the educational establishment wants to block parents from having more options for their children's education. The lawsuit reveals the true concerns of the public school interest. They fear losing their monopoly on education funding and control. HB 93 doesn't take money away from public schools. It provides tax credits to families who choose alternatives. These families already pay taxes to support public schools they're not using, so that money should go back to them. House Majority Leader Jason Monks defended the program, noting that taxpayers already get tax credits for church donations, so why not for educational expenses? The law helps families access educational options that might better serve their children's needs. Especially important when traditional public schools continue to struggle despite increased funding. Parents deserve the freedom to make educational decisions for their children. This lawsuit shows that the educational establishment prioritizes protecting its system over serving the students and family it serves. And speaking of the courts, Idaho's voter laws are facing a crucial test this week as March for Our Lives Idaho argues before a federal appeals court that removing student IDs targets young voters. This case centers on Idaho House Bill 124 and 340, if you want to go look at those. Those legislation passed in 2023 to eliminate student identification as valid ID for voting and registration. Attorney David Fox told the Ninth Circuit judges on Wednesday that these laws create, quote, a targeted strike on young voters, end quote, pointing at lawmakers protecting elderly voters who use signed affidavits, but remove student IDs despite young people relying on them, so-called. The plaintiffs argue this violates the 26th Amendment, which bars age discrimination in voting. Idaho's lawyers countered that the state needs uniform, secure identification standards, and noted that fewer than 100 voters used student ID in 2022. Also, there is a secondary way you can get a piece of identification just for voting if you don't have any of the other forms of voter ID, and that works for younger people as well. They also emphasized, as we would as well, that the state now offers free voter photo IDs through the DMV, specifically for this, making it an alternative identification accessible. Both the Idaho Supreme Court and federal district judge have already upheld these laws, finding that they don't discriminate against specific groups and serve legitimate security interests. The federal appeals panel will decide whether Idaho can maintain these ID requirements, or if they are unconstitutionally burdening young citizens' voting rights, which, granted, I think we had this up until just 2 minutes ago. Hey, have you enjoyed the stories we've gone over so far? If so, do us a favor and hit the like and subscribe/follow button. It helps us stay connected with you and reach more folks who love Idaho just like yourself. And continuing with legal matters, because that seems to be where most of the discussion in America and Idaho is happening, our state's Stibnite Gold Project reached a significant milestone this week when the U.S. Forest Service gave Perpetua Resources the green light to begin construction. This marks the end of an 8-year permitting process that cost the company over $400 million. The project, if you haven't heard about it, will open on an abandoned mine site near Yellow Pine that operated on and off since the late 1800s. What makes this particularly important for our nation is the antium, not like an anti-thing. It is a crucial mineral that China has stopped exporting globally. The Stibnite site holds about 148 million pounds of antium, estimated, making it America's largest domestic reserve. Major General John Ream from the Army highlighted the mine's national security importance, calling it essential for munitions production, including missiles and night vision equipment. The mine could supply over 35% of America's antium needs. However, legal challenges, as you may know, have clouded the timeline. The Nez Perce tribe filed a lawsuit in federal court last month, arguing that the mine violates their 1855 treaty rights to fish, hunt, and gather on the land. Conservation groups also filed their own lawsuit over environmental concerns. Despite these challenges, however, Perpetua plans to begin construction once they secure project financing, which they expect within weeks. The company also already spent about $20 million cleaning up legacy waste from the past mining operations. If successful, the mining operations could start by 2029 and run for 15 years. And speaking of using our natural resources and being self-reliant, Governor Little signed Executive Order 2025-06 this week, creating the Idaho Advanced Nuclear Energy Task Force to position our state as the nation's nuclear energy leader. This announcement came as Oklo broke ground on their Aurora powerhouse at Idaho National Laboratory, making the first commercial-scale advanced nuclear reactor built in America in decades. The timing reflects a broader nuclear renaissance, driven by unprecedented energy demand, a growth of about 30% in the near future, particularly driven by AI and other emerging technologies. Unlike intermittent wind and solar power, nuclear energy provides reliable baseload power, you can look that term up if you like, without carbon emissions. The Aurora reactor will produce about 75 megawatts of clean electricity, while creating 370 construction jobs and 80 permanent positions. This sodium-cooled fast reactor builds on the successful experimental breeder reactor 2 that operated in our state from 1964 to 1994, which, as you all know, we didn't have any meltdowns during that period, so this one won't either. Plus, since it's sodium, you can go look that up, it's kind of impossible for it to melt down. The project benefits from President Trump's Reactor Pilot Program executive orders, which streamlined reactor development by cutting bureaucratic delays that previously killed industry momentum. That's a lot of garbage goop for basically Trump cut red tape so businesses can move forward. Governor Little emphasized that nuclear power is essential for America's artificial intelligence race and energy security, stating we cannot meet future energy needs with legacy sources. Idaho currently uses no nuclear power, despite hosting the nation's premier nuclear research facility. But these developments position us to lead America's clean energy future. Which did you know about Idaho's history in nuclear, or what's been going on with the Boise School District? If not, don't hesitate to share this episode. Your shares help us keep you and others informed about what's happening in Idaho. And speaking of electricity and lights, the city of Caldwell has hired Precision Engineering LLC to analyze poor lighting in half of our downtown area. The August City Council approved $29,460 from the Electrical Fund to study the area south of the railway tracks between 5th and 10th Street on Cleveland Boulevard. The analysis will measure current nighttime lighting and identify ways to improve illumination, especially at intersections. This follows community concerns, or town concerns, about safety, particularly for school children walking to bus stops in the dark. One concerned citizen brought these concerns to the council earlier this year, calling North Downtown, quote, "the land that time forgot," end quote. That is a great quote. He showed photos of children walking to buses in the dark and warned of, quote, "uncertain and possible threats," end quote, lurking in the poorly lit areas. The consultant expects to finish the study by late October. Char Jackson, the city's public information officer, explained that Caldwell lacks software and equipment to do this work internally. The electronic fund covers streetlight operations and maintenance throughout the city, so it's already money that's been kind of set aside for this stuff. These lighting studies represent one step in addressing safety concerns as Caldwell continues to grow rapidly in the Treasure Valley, almost one of the fastest growing ones, and also to ensure that Caldwell's downtown area receives proper illumination to protect residents, especially children who use these streets daily. Because as they say, evil does not like to be in the light. And as we close out the episode on the topic of potatoes, 8 years ago, Kyle Naring and his wife Amy started making potato chips in their basement after work. Today, Teton Valley Brands, which you may or may not have heard of, operates from a brand new 14,000 square foot facility in Caldwell, producing about 10,000 bags of real Idaho potato chips daily. Naring admits he, quote, "knew nothing about manufacturing and nothing about potato chips," end quote, when the idea first struck him. The company began with just $5,000 from each founder and grew through sheer determination. Also probably a little blessing of the Lord. They moved from their basement to a small Nampa facility that Naring built himself before making the leap to their state-of-the-art Caldwell operations. Now, one of the cool things about this company and what makes it a true Idaho company, and beyond just the location, is the values that they hold. Teton Valley Brands partnered exclusively with Craney Farms, a fifth-generation potato operation that's been growing spuds for over 100 years. Craney's didn't just supply potatoes, they invested in the company because they believe in its mission. The company also collaborated with Snake River Farms, using American Wagyu beef tallow in some of their products. I think I hear a Kennedy that's very happy. Creating what Naring calls, quote, "two fantastic Idaho companies coming together," end quote. Most importantly, they've raised every dollar of funding from within our state, keeping the success story completely homegrown. This represents something bigger than business. It shows how Idaho entrepreneurs can build from nothing through hard work, family support, and deep community roots. As Governor Little noted, it's the kind of story that makes us proud to call this place home. Which, speaking of how wonderful Idaho is, I'm going to go out and enjoy it more, and you should as well. Though, thank you for listening to the entire report. I sincerely hope you found it enjoyable and valuable. If you like the Midweek Report, make sure to check out our other content on social media and on our website. Also, if we missed any important points or provided incorrect information, please feel free to reach out to us via email or on Twitter. With the small team we have, we're not able to cover everything, but we do our best to cover the most important and interesting stories. Thank you for your continued support and assistance. That's all for now, and I wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Godspeed.